So, I have a question that I've been mulling over for a while. How horny is too horny?
Impervious! Pathetic! How embarrassing!
Marvel Rivals was one of the big gaming surprises of 2024 for me. As someone who fell off Overwatch a long time ago, I thought I was pretty much done with the hero shooter genre. But Marvel Rivals drew me back in by just being one of the best multiplayer games I've played in years. Marvel Rivals reminds me of early Overwatch, before everything had to be perfectly balanced and competitive, when fun and chaos took centre stage. Some characters are a bit overpowered, some abilities are unfair, but I don't view that as a problem. I think that a game where every character is a little overpowered is way more interesting than a game where every character has to be perfectly sanded down to fit into a competitive meta. So I've been playing the game these last few months, and as we enter Season 2 with the introduction of new tank character Emma Frost, there's just been something chipping away at the back of my brain that's finally bubbled to the surface. Are we okay with this? Alright, let's do this properly. Okay, let's add some class to these affairs. There we go. Marvel Rivals is a very horny game, surprisingly so for a popular game in 2025. What do I mean by that? Because it's not just a case of all the female characters being attractive, that's broadly true of most games. I mean that most, not all, but most of the female characters in the game are sexualized in a very male-gazy sort of way. Like, okay, there is a big difference between Black Widow just wearing a skin-tight catsuit and Black Widow shoving her ass in the camera during her highlight intro. I know you've never seen her highlight intro because no one ever plays Black Widow, but trust me, she does do that. This has really been brought to the forefront for me because of the fan reaction to Emma Frost, which has been overwhelmingly positive, with a lot of attention paid in particular to, as Andy Chalk of PCGamer puts it, her thunderous gams. I mean, okay, pay close attention here. Her thighs have jiggle physics. This is somehow elevated by her first premium skin, which I can only describe as the Dommy Mummy skin, and thus prompts my opening question. How horny is too horny? I'm not intending this as a condemnation of all the horny thirst posters. This is a genuine question with its roots in a lot of different overlapping issues. Issues around female representation and objectification are a big one, but they're not the only one, and arguably not the most important one either. If there's one idea that I really want to communicate in this video, it's that two contradictory ideas can be true. Marvel Rivals has tremendous art direction. All of the characters are incredibly well designed, stylized and expressive in ways that are often better than any other depiction of the character has ever been. Marvel Rivals Squirrel Girl is probably the best design the character has ever had. Marvel Rivals character design is also fundamentally broken in ways that I don't think can be fixed without a radical departure from the game's genre and the source material. Both things can be true. In fact, they're true for most hero shooters. I want to get ahead of the most common counter-argument real quick, because there is a certain subset of the internet that gets really mad when you bring up this topic at all. Why do you hate attractive women? Are women not allowed to be sexy? One of the most annoying things to come out of Marvel Rivals' success is how it's been co-opted by the right-wing anti-woke crowd as some kind of blow against the modern woke trend of uglifying women in games. This is annoying because every part of their argument is based on lies and mistruths. First of all, there is no trend of uglifying women, there's a trend of diversifying women. Secondly, Marvel Rivals is woke as hell, just like pretty much everything they claim is non-woke. The game gives Scarlet Witch dark skin, a design choice fans have made for years but the comics and movies never properly commit to. She's always either extremely white or sort of ambiguously white. In fact, the game does plenty of stuff to make its cast of heroes more diverse, like replacing Danny Rand as Iron Fist with the much less known character Lin Lie. Presumably because he's Chinese and Danny Rand has, for a long time now, been considered kind of problematic. It massively elevates the character of Luna Snow, who basically no one had heard of before Marvel Rivals, presumably because she's Korean. They could have used a more popular ice-based character like Iceman. They also give Namor his South American accent and darker skin tone from Wakanda Forever, a choice that they all claimed was woke shit when that movie came out.
It reintroduced Namor, who is now known as Namor, who Disney fucked up.
These contradictions don't actually matter because they're grifters. They do not give a shit about being contradictory. They care about keeping their fanbase of rabid toxic assholes angry and pointed at gay people. The grain of truth in their argument is that Marvel Rivals does actually represent a departure from the current trend of more realistic, less objectified women in video games. If we compare character designs between this game and the last Marvel game, Midnight Suns, which is incredible by the way, then the differences are pretty apparent. The women are bustier, curvier, and just in general way more obviously sexualized. This is a design choice worth discussing. The problem is not, and has never been, that women are not allowed to look sexy or attractive. The idea that feminists think women should be ugly is, and always has been, bollocks. The women in Midnight Suns are all conventionally attractive. What they aren't is objectified. To really demonstrate what I'm trying to say, let's look at two characters who are shared across both games, Magic and Storm. Now again, two things can be true. Visually, Marvel Rivals designs are clearly the winner. They're way more visually interesting and stylized compared to the rather flat-looking design and art style of Midnight Suns. They're also way more objectified. Not only are they showing a lot more skin, or in Storm's case, a costume that's a lot more tight, but specifically, look at the way they're posed. Magic's body is turned in this really unnatural way to highlight the curves of her body. Storm is likewise unnaturally posed to make sure that her curves are in sharp focus, as opposed to Midnight Suns, where each of them are standing either ready for action or just like a regular human being. This is the objectification, the unnatural supermodel poses that these characters are constantly sporting. The most egregious example in the game for me is Invisible Woman, whose stance is obviously designed to highlight her features in a way that looks so uncomfortable to actually stand in. Here, let's try it now, shall we? Okay, I have it down on my iPad down here, so what's the bit? I'm gonna work from this foot down. So she has sort of this leg sort of tilted up like this. Her thighs are sort of, her knees are sort of like angled together somehow. Hang on, right. So it's like this. And then her body's tilted this way so that, you know, her boobs are out. So you can't actually see this arm. It's sort of down below like this. And then sort of tilted back, face this way, hands like this. Am I doing it? Does this look about right? God, it's really uncomfortable to stand like this. Oh, okay. So, why is this a problem? Is this a problem? Let me answer that by asking another question. Why are all the women in the game posing like this? Mr. Fantastic isn't posing, he's just standing there. Most of the male characters are, in fact, and if they are striking a pose, like Black Panther, then it's an action pose, not a sexy pose. So, why are the women posing? This is a character customization screen. There is no lore explanation for this. They're not posing for a fashion shoot. They're posing for you, the intended straight male audience. This is what the male gaze refers to. It's the portrayal of women specifically to appeal to men. That's not to say women can't enjoy it, but it's for men. The problem with this is the way that it places women's sexual value above any other value. The fighting prowess of these women is being valued less than their hotness. It's dehumanizing, and it enforces ancient misogynistic ideas about the value of women in our society. That's a very harsh, third-wave feminist, Anita Sarkeesian way to put it, and I don't think it's wrong, but I don't think it has to be the whole story. I am, after all, the intended audience, and I am not too ashamed to admit that I like looking at attractive women, so why would I have a problem with this? 2 minutes ago I tried doing the Invisible Woman sexy pose, right, and that was quite fun. We all had a little chuckle about that. Why? Why was me trying to do the sexy pose funny? Well, it's because I am not a sexy lady, but it's also because, generally speaking, explicit male sexuality is a punchline. Men aren't supposed to try and be sexy because other men are made uncomfortable by overt male sexuality. Unless they're gay, but that's a whole different discussion we're not having. I'm specifically talking about straight male sexuality. Another common counter-argument to the idea that the game is degrading to women is to point to some of the men's costumes and say that they're just as skimpy, like this one for Black Panther. And, okay, I don't know if this argument is being made in good faith or not, but lads, you have to understand that there is a massive difference between this and this. I'm reminded of Dan Olson's excellent video series on the 50 Shades trilogy, and specifically how the framing of the movies changed along with the directors.
Where the first film included shots like this, where the focus of the shot is on Christian's sexual form, his movement and poise in an overtly sexual scenario, the closest equivalent shot in Darker is when Anna watches Christian work out. It may feel slight, the difference between a shot that says, "This man is coming to f*** you," and one that says, "Look at this dude getting buff," but it's an aesthetic sensibility that pervades the visual language of the film.
Nudity is not inherently sexual, right? I mean, only the hardiest among us is getting their walks off to medical diagrams. Sexiness requires more than just the sight of a naked body, it requires the suggestion of horniness. Me undoing a third button is more provocative than if I was just sitting there with my shirt off, because the tease is more sexy than the whole hog, as it were. The reason this is sexual and this isn't is intention. The Black Panther skin is technically wearing less clothes, yes, but the intention of that lack of clothes is not to seduce, it's to look strong, to look big and buff and intimidating. If he was posed like this, then it would be a very different story. But he isn't, therefore this doesn't come across as a sexualized skin. The Malice skin for Invisible Woman, on the other hand, is not only sexualized, but deliberately kinky. Not just because of her silly pose, but because she's literally wrapped up in belts. It's a look of sexual domination in an extremely horny way. Showing skin is not what makes an outfit enticing, it's the suggestion of sexuality, it's the images that said showing of skin is intended to provoke that's enticing. That's not to say nobody could find this sexy, but there is a big difference between this framing of the male form and this framing of the male form, right? If the game had Mr. Fantastic dressed up and posed like this, I seriously doubt we'd still be getting comments about the game being anti-woke, because overt male sexuality like this is actually really uncommon in mainstream media. Let's really analyse the Venom twerk emo, shall we? Ever since the game first came out, there were jokes about Venom's rather prominent posterior. They leaned into this with some of the marketing and eventually released this emo as a free reward for everyone. Now, this emo is a joke, obviously, it's a meme. You're not supposed to look at the twerking alien monster and be legitimately aroused. You're supposed to have a light chuckle to yourself about its absurdity. Do you think the intention would be the same if this emote was given to Emma Frost? No, of course not. It would be a sexy lady doing a provocative sexy dance. The implications are entirely different. The problem here is not about realism. None of the men in Marvel Rivals are even remotely shaped like actual men. The problem is with intention. If we assume that superheroes are supposed to be aspirational, then what this is explicitly saying is that men should aspire to be strong and women should aspire to be sexy. And that is just so limiting for everyone involved. If you want to make a horny game, then make a horny game, you fucking cowards. Give me sexy, shirtless, oiled up Wolverine. Give me 40s pin-up Captain America. Give the women what they want and put Bucky Barnes in some far too tight skinny jeans. And if the sight of all these overly sexualized men makes you feel uncomfortable, good. Now you understand how women feel about the skins already in the game. The problem is not with sexuality, with having your game be a bit horny. The problem is equality. Horniness should be for everyone if that's the direction you want to go in. Hades is a classic example of this. That's a very horny game, but it's equal opportunity with its horniness, which means everyone can enjoy it. Back to Midnight Suns, that game has swimsuits for all of the characters. All of the characters. See how much more fun that is when it's fair? And hey, they recently gave all the guys bigger butts, so hey, maybe they really are going to go in that direction. Crazier things have happened. That's a tidy answer, isn't it? I could end the video right there. Make the men hornier. But that doesn't actually solve the underlying issue with all of these designs, does it? Which is that all of these women look exactly the same. It was a well commented on fact when she was first added to the game that at a distance and in the heat of battle, Invisible Woman is almost indistinguishable from Dagger. They're both slim, curvy, white blonde women wearing white with blue highlights. And I agree that is an issue they've decided to triple down on by adding a third blonde white woman who wears white with blue highlights. But the problem actually runs deeper than that, into the core conceptions of the game. Readability is fundamental to any game, but in a hero shooter like Rivals, being able to quickly identify a character at a glance is hugely important because it will determine how you need to react and counter them. You need to be able to tell at a glance who you're fighting. This isn't a huge deal between Invisible Woman and Cloak and Dagger because they're both squishy healers with similar enough abilities that your reaction to either should be mostly the same. But this is a scaling issue. Right now it's not a big deal, but NetEase, the Marvel Rivals developers, just announced that starting next season they're going to be adding new heroes every month. So, let's speculate on some heroes that couldn't make the cut. Mockingbird, Agent 13, Dazzler, White Widow, Saturn 9. Are you seeing the potential issue here yet? All of these women look the same. And that's just blonde women wearing white. Let's not even get started on the blonde women not wearing white, like Captain Marvel or Enchantress. These are all distinct characters with distinct personalities and abilities, but they're all attractive blonde women with the exact same body type. If we ever get around to adding any of these characters, and to be fair, it's going to be like 6 years before we get to the likes of Saturn 9, then this is just going to become a bigger and bigger problem. One defense of Emma Frost's design that has come up often is that it's accurate to the comics. This outfit in particular is actually based on a comic book outfit, and it's one of the less ridiculous things she's worn over the years. So, there you go. See, it's not actually an issue, it's just being accurate to the source material. Okay, you're right. This isn't a Marvel Rivals problem. This is a Marvel problem, and it spells doom for the potential future of the game. Let's ditch colour, because colour can change. The Malice skin may be very horny, but it does at least set Invisible Women pretty clearly apart from Dagger, right? Well, one of the most important ideas in hero shooters is the idea of silhouettes. A character should first and foremost be identifiable by their shape. The size of a character represents their role in the battlefield. Big guys are tanks, little guys are assassins, middle-sized people are frontline fighters and healers, right? Inside those categories, if you have multiple tanks, multiple healers, then each character should stand out by shape alone. This is especially important when you introduce things like custom skins that completely change how a character looks. You need to be able to tell who a character is regardless of what they might visually look like. This is something that Overwatch is usually really good at. Even if characters have similar body types, they're identifiable at a glance by their weapons. Tracer has 2 guns, Widowmaker has a rifle, Mercy has wings, etc. This is where Marvel Rivals really runs up against the wall, because not only do pretty much all of their female characters have the same body type, most of them don't have a weapon or any sort of essential accessory. Dagger uses magic daggers that she shoots from her hands, Invisible Woman shoots telekinetic blasts from her hands, and Emma Frost uses telepathic mind beams. On top of that, we have Luna Snow, who shoots ice shards from her hands, Scarlet Witch, who shoots chaos magic blasts from her hands, Mantis, who shoots... I actually have no idea what Mantis' weapon is supposed to be, but she shoots it from her hands. Psylocke shoots psionic blasts from her hands, and Storm shoots lightning from her hands. There are already skins in the game that make the characters completely unrecognisable compared to the default model, so without clear body diversity or accessory diversity, the only way to know which character you're fighting is just to be familiar with every single skin in the game. And that's not a scalable solution. What's going to happen when they give Luna Snow a blonde skin? Nothing helpful, that's for sure. Marvel Comics is absolutely full of sexy ladies in skimpy outfits who shoot shit from their hands. Just to name a few who've been leaked for the game already: Captain Marvel, Jean Grey, Rogue, Jubilee, Crystal. With their costumes as standard, all of these characters look pretty diverse and unique, but mix and match the colours, put them in some alternative outfits, and suddenly all of these women are completely unrecognisable if you don't already know who they are. Marvel only knows how to draw one kind of woman, and they've been drawing her for the last century. The problem of similar-looking female characters really isn't Marvel Rivals' fault. It's a problem they've inherited from Marvel Comics, and I hope, at least, that this is a problem they are aware of. The men do not suffer from this problem. Even with the mountains of muscle, there are variations of mountains. Venom goes in and then out again. Thor is a giant rectangle. Captain America is a triangle. The Punisher is a Gears of War character. The Thing is a rock monster. You get my point. There are some female characters who bug this trend. Magik has the same body type, but she's also constantly carrying a giant sword, which is pretty hard to miss. Hela is taller and thinner than average, and at least so far all of her skins have her giant spiky crown head thing. Penny Parker is a child in a mech suit. Squirrel Girl is much wider than she's usually portrayed, and of course there's Emma Frost's thunderous gams. There is an attempt here at body diversity, but there's only so much you can do as long as you constrain yourself to the limits of conventional female sexuality. If She-Hulk ever comes out, I seriously doubt they're going to give her a build like Zarya, let alone a build like He-Hulk, because you know as well as I do what a shitstorm it would cause if they did that. Also, they're horny wee buggers, as previously discussed. They're not going to add women into the game if they can't give her a few skimpy comic book accurate costumes. So, in conclusion, how horny is too horny? I hope you can see by now that horniness is a very complicated issue, but the real issue isn't with the amount of horniness, it's with the type of horniness. Marvel Rivals opts for a very mother is mothering down bad style of horniness where everyone wants the woman to step on them, and as far as female objectification goes, we can do much worse. But I have concerns. I have concerns about this continued focus on female sexuality and how it will impact the actual women who are part of the community and how they're treated. And I have concerns about how this continued horniness will impact the principles of the game's design. Marvel Rivals is not too horny. Yet. But that doesn't mean it won't end up that way.
Well, you can't expect to win them all.
Thank you for watching, and a very special thank you to my wonderful patrons for your continued support. If you'd like to see your name up here, or just support the things that I do, then please consider signing up. It would mean a lot to me, as well as a like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring the bell. For another Marvel video, I actually haven't done a Marvel video in a while. Here's a video about Secret Invasion, you remember that? Trainwreck? Or for something a bit different, I'm currently doing a critique series of all the Assassin's Creed games, and you can find all of those in this playlist down here. I'm going to button up now. Sorry.